The table today is Ecowas security concerns, and if I'm talking about Ecowas security concerns, then who do I need in my studio other than my own brother Ibad Ibrahim? Ibad, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. It's always humbling being on your show, Nana.
Oh, it's humbling you being on my show. And the last time we're here, we're looking at AU concern, and today we're narrowing it down to Ecowas. And we're starting with the premises of our president, you know, inviting all presidents within ECOWAS region to come, let us jojo and find out how there should be peace. Now, I just want to find out, do you think it was a success?
I think it depends upon the perspective from which you look at it. If you're an analyst who has studied the evolution of such groups like Boko Haram in Nigeria, Mujao, ensconced between Niger and Chad, and then Ansar-ud-Din in Mali, you would think this is a belated flurry of activism from the chair of ECOWAS, even though the ethos of diplomacy dictates that he do, and I use the word do justively, he do just that to solidarize with the people of Mali as well as Nigeria. But I think it's a bit belated because Boko Haram did not militarize its campaign only yesterday. They've been around for the past 5 years. They've been killing people in droves. They've decapitated people on video and all that. And in all these circumstances, ECOWAS was palpably absent. And these girls that have been abducted, they've been in abduction for the past 49 days. So for you to huddle together or cobble together leaders at such a belated time is a bit disappointing. Therefore, much as we decry the inertia on the part of ECOWAS, I think it's also coming at an opportune time when the international community has come on board to help us through this serious abduction crisis. So therefore, I think, Nana, I think this meeting was important because it sends a very strong political signal to Boko Haram that not only the federal government of Nigeria is fed up with its activities, but then there is a certain groundswell level of political solidarity, and the time to bid it good riddance is now and quash the dissidents in the northern part of Nigeria.
But then the issue is, we don't trust ourselves, you know. There's this element of distrust between neighbors. Oh, he's going to send people to spy on me, and therefore all borders become very rigid. Recently, some Nigerians that were traveling to Ghana to come and do an interview, and they were in a bus, and the rigmarole they had to go through just to come to Ghana. So, you know, where are we going to find this trust to help, you know, each other to fight security?
Nana, in international relations, trust is a very expensive commodity. You hardly come by it. There's a lot of trust between the US and Germany since the Berlin Wall fell in 1989. But Edward Snowden, through his leaks, made it clear that the American National Security Agency had really backed the foot of Angela Merkel. So espionage happens everywhere, so it's good. It's understandable that people are a bit apprehensive about their sovereignty and territorial integrity. So you look askance at neighboring countries, but that's notwithstanding, it's good that we've come to a realization that this threat has no respect for borders. The enemy is unique in his brutality, and the more we're able to put our shoulders to the wheel and get all hands to be on deck, the better it will be for the long-term security of individual ECOWAS member countries, as well as the collective good of the ECOWAS sub-region.
The other thing that comes to mind is how porous our borders are, how much value we place on immigration. I mean, our immigration are crying for uniforms, you know, cars, guns, bullets, just so that they can man these borders and protect. They don't even have it with all best intentions. So, and I'm sure it probably runs within the ECOWAS region. So again, I didn't hear too much of that being discussed with the release that came out. So where are we starting? What premises are we working with?
The communique is small on detail, but a lot happens behind the scenes. And I want to put on record that in the past year, I've had occasion to attend some of the security meetings. I know our people are doing a lot, Nana. Our people are doing a lot just to insulate this country from any terrorist potential attack. And those of us in the diplomatic missions know that now we are trying to tighten the noose at the various entry points into the country. The ports are quite, you know, watertight. You could talk about the land borders. We may talk about that later. But in terms of aviation, at first you could come into Ghana and then get visa on arrival But only about a month or two ago, they wrote to all diplomatic missions saying that the Foreign Affairs Ministry and regional integration, because of myriad reasons, and I'm sure security featured in prominently, they wouldn't allow any embassy to offer visas on arrival. So therefore, that tells you that at the governmental level, at the state level, a lot is being done. But the real porosity, Nana, is underscored in the fact that when you look at the terrestrial landmarks we have, Ghana shares kilometers of borders with Togo, Burkina Faso, and La Côte d'Ivoire. People pay a pittance to get across. So therefore, that does not augur well for the kind of national security we want in the unlikely event that Boko Haram or other like-minded militant groups would want to do harm to the country. So I think we shouldn't rest on our laurels. To become complacent means that you are leaving your door ajar to a potential attack, and to be forewarned to be forearmed. We saw what happened in Kenya as well. So therefore, I think we should tighten the noose around our borders. We should make sure the people there are well equipped, they have the numerical strength, and well motivated. Nana, the main problem with African militaries is that remuneration is very low. So therefore, if someone can bribe you, give you what could, cater for your 3-month salary so that you give way, certainly you are going to do that. So therefore, in Nigeria, for example, there was a similar suicide attack. The bomb was assembled in the far northeast, and you have to travel hundreds of miles to get to Abuja. So how did those people traverse all those, myriad border and security checkpoints dotted across the country? That tells you that there is foul play there's foul play taking place largely because people are not well incentivized. Therefore, if Boko Haram can give you a tip and then find your bomb or booby-trapped car into the capital, then so be it. So there should be a lot of motivation, both in material things. They should be equipped with the necessary gadgets. You go to a border town and all you see is an assault rifle. And for all you know, it doesn't even have the necessary, machine rounds to be able to forestall any potential attack. I think it's about time we spent more on security. There are infrared-enabled watchtowers. You can peep and pry into miles away and be able to detect the movement of people from afar. I think the time has come for us to do just that, so that we protect our borders, much so the Elubo side of the country and all that, because we know that the potential threat is likely to come from there.
I was just going to go to the Kenya, Sudan-Kenya issue. Now that our president is, obviously has to show leadership, therefore calls. I mean, is Boko Haram going to say, well, let's go and teach him a lesson? There's Ghana, trying to either stop us or, put their foot in our business. Is that a threat where you wake up one morning and, there's a bomb somewhere to say, keep quiet? Nana,
I do my best to deflate people's apprehension. I try to mitigate and allay people's fears because the permutations in Kenya differ from what is happening in Ghana. We have only shown by word of mouth that we are committed to the fight against transnational militancy. But Kenya had poured in up to 3,000 of its forces into Kismayo. And Kismayo is the economic heartbeat of Al-Shabaab because of a multi-million-dollar charcoal business over there. So Al-Shabaab felt economically strangulated by the Kenyan deployment. So they had to hit back and hit back where it would pinch Kenya the most. So they hit at Westgate more. And unfortunately, one of the illustrious sons of this country, Prof. Awono, found himself there at the wrong time. So I think the threat is palpable. It is inching ever closer. But I don't think we've gotten to a point where Ghana will be on the radar of Boko Haram or any like-minded errant violent groups because we haven't deployed troops in there. There are no Ghanaian boots on the ground. So therefore, the permutations are different. Kenya was attacked. It had poured in soldiers. Uganda was attacked in 2010 during the final match of the World Cup because it had also committed troops to Somalia to fight Al-Shabaab. So our president has been a bit cautious. It's like he's chaperoning people towards a certain destination where we'll have a concerted effort in tackling the menace. But he hasn't been presumptuous enough to propose the deployment of any Ecowas contingency, in which case there's a possibility that there could be a backlash from the militants.
I mean, they're talking of a rapid response. I mean, they're saying that, military intervention doesn't seem to be very popular amongst the discussion, but they're looking at a rapid response. I presume everybody would contribute to this rapid response so that if Boko Haram is upset, then we have to go to all 16 countries and drop a grenade there somewhere. Will that be a smart move to have a coalition attack it so that you don't feel like one person, is that me? I mean,
multilateralism is the catchword, Nana. It's always better you don't take a unilateral decision. Kenya, to a large extent, even though it had the nod of the East African political bloc, we call it IGAD, it took a unilateral decision to go into Somalia. So when the backlash came, it hit Kenya so hard. So I think it's better you have sprinkles of Ecowas forces, a few from Nane's hometown, a few from Togo and Burkina Faso, so that we use them as a decoy to deflate attention from Ghana. It's a possibility. But I think at this juncture, Nigeria is not suffering from a paucity or scarcity of soldiers. Numerical strength is not their problem. Nigeria is the most populous country on the continent with a population of a little over 170 million. And since 1948, when the League of Nations transmogrified into the United Nations, there have been 51 peacekeeping missions. And Nigeria has had a very good showing in up to 25 of those. So Nigeria doesn't have a problem with numerical strength. Their main problem is that they don't have the technical know-how, the infrared equipment to be able to detect the movement of Boko Haram and then be preemptive enough to avoid their attacks. That is why I'm a bit enthused about the involvement of our Western partners. The CIA is coming on board with a lot of equipment, and the Israeli Mossad has a wealth of experience in tackling such guerrilla rogue elements that carry out war of attrition because of its decades-old experience with Hezbollah in Lebanon, as well as Hamas in the Palestinian territories. So I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. The fact that there is, this sheer magnitude of international support means that perhaps we may soon be seeing the beginning of the end for Boko Haram. But I wouldn't advise any ECOWAS deployment at this time. Let's wait for the security apparatus, which we have set in concert with our Western partners. Let's wait for a few months and see how it pans out before we think of doing something similar to what we did in the case of Ecowas when we went into Liberia and Sierra Leone. And Nana, I've said over and over again, this particular enemy is different. In Liberia, Ghana and Nigeria championed the cause because there were no suicide bombers over there. But this particular enemy, this 21st enemy, is unique. He has been able to brainwash young people, young impressionable people, into thinking that when they strap a bomb across their body and go into a church laden with worshippers, or go close to a military installation or a presidential palace and blow themselves up, they will go to heaven. So it becomes very difficult to stop a man who is bent on dying. So this particular enemy is unique. That is why I think the situation is quite dicey, it is delicate, and we should tread cautiously.
I agree with you, but then the issue then becomes what Goodluck Jonathan is doing now, where we don't seem to see whether he has any eager to go and catch these people or not. Shouldn't there be, I mean, by all means, there's a camp. I know it's an ideology, but by all means, they have camps and hiding places, and they shouldn't be given that latitude because they seem to have the latitude, come when they please and go when anytime. They don't struggle to hit.
Yeah, Nana. The impunity of Boko Haram, can make you insomniac. You can't understand how they are able to hit 3 different cities with large, distances between them at the same time. So they've become so brazen, so overt in their attacks because of, the fact that we've not been able to map out an efficient military strategy to nip the menace in the bud. But I know that their days are numbered. Their days are numbered. And very soon, I'm very sure that with the necessary, security arrangements that have been made by both ECOWAS, in addition to the efforts being made by the international community, we'll be able to tackle the issue. But Nana, much has been said about getting a rapid response team so that they can jump to the occasion anytime there is any threat to any member country's security. But is it easy to do that? No army can fight on an empty stomach, Nana. I'll give you a typical example. In Mali, the Ansar-ud-Din and Tuareg rebels were inching ever closer to Bamako in 2013, and they were within striking distance of the capital. The AU had sat around the negotiation table and agreed that there would be an African, involvement in the crisis by September last year. But the French knew that, no, there was no time to spare. So by January, they had deployed into Mali. So when the dust settled and the guns went silent and these people melted into the countryside, UNIMAS was formed. That is a peacekeeping mission in Mali. And Nana, as we talk today, UNIMAS has been in existence for the past 9 months, and then its mandate will end on the 30th of this month. Do you know the budgetary allocation for this single year? It has been $602 million to keep up a contingent of 8,000 soldiers. So do we have the financial wherewithal? Even if we want to say we want to beat that down to some 90%, can member states raise some $500 million every year to keep up a rapid response team, when in fact member states like countries like Ghana are grappling with filth in their capital cities like Accra, and Senegal's streets are replete with beggars. So it becomes very difficult. That's why I want to say all the time that we shouldn't demonize our Western partners. Without them, I don't think any other African country, not even Nigeria, any other African country would be able to parry off any such onslaught from Boko Haram and other like-minded militant groups. That's why I think it's very important that we work together, that we live in a world of interstate and intercontinental dependency. They have the bugs, we have the strength. So let's provide the brute strength so that collectively we'll make the continent safe for everybody.
Ivan, is there not a defeatist position for the whole of West Africa to say that somehow, member states can't chip in or contribute into a basket and use it to, protect ourselves? I mean, the whole Ecowas is saying, look, we really can't protect ourselves. I mean, we can't say that.
Nana, it's defeatist, but we live in a polarized, part of the continent. A few years ago, there was a ferociously debated issue about one Chinook helicopter that had been bought for the military for rescue missions. You saw the political wrangling, the back and forth. So therefore, that's why I think democracy has not been so helpful. Libya became one of the strongest militaries on the continent, largely because when Gaddafi said red, it was red, and nobody could challenge the status quo. But if today you have a country of so many academics, people who will come with dot their I's and cross the T's and tell you why you shouldn't devote Ghanaian blood to any, ECOWAS campaign, then it becomes very difficult for people to be committed to such a venture, because war is an expensive enterprise, Nana.
And does it bring peace?
War does not necessarily bring peace. That is why we've always reiterated that the best way to fight an insurgency similar to Boko Haram's is by denying it that enabling or conducive environment it so desperately needs to thrive. Solve the issue of economic disparity between the north and south, give jobs to the teeming unemployed youth, make sure there is education accessible to everybody, and make sure you tackle the issue of illiteracy. Nana, I'm a busy young man, I'm a Muslim. I'm a potential target of recruits because I'm multilingual. If I become a terrorist today, I would be a very efficacious terrorist because I can easily blend in. But I don't have time for that. I have a job. I have to go wake up early in the morning and go work and come back later in the evening. So the devil finds
me calling you to get on the show too.
And the good old book, the Bible says the devil finds work for the idle hand. So I'm sure if we're able to tackle all these broad-based grievances, terrorism will not thrive in the sub-region at all.
I'll take a break here. When we come back, the gap between the very well-to-do and the have-nots is so wide that if that is what is breeding Boko Haram, then we must expect more Boko Harams. Let me take a break. ECOWAS security concerns is what's on the table, and Friday 31st May the president summoned all leaders within the ECOWAS so that they can sit around the table and find out how they put the end to the menace. But as the conversation is going on between my brother and I, Ibad, the question of poverty is coming. Now, once people are destitute, they will take anything and they are easily or more gullible. And here we are with a continent where, the very few rich are becoming extremely rich, and those who are struggling, can't even afford to die because, you are in trouble if you die. The cost of funeral becomes a burden. And therefore, the potential for raising all these pockets of insurgents is high. Again, thanks to Goodluck Jonathan, we haven't seen the agency that if you raise an insurgency, we'll come crushing you. So then the security then becomes, you know, really real.
It becomes lax. But Nana, a lot of work has been done into what gives people the motivation. Nana, so I just can't envisage why a person will booby trap a truck, then go press a button and detonate it and kills himself and kills others. It's become very difficult for people to understand the psyche of these terrorists. Sometimes you try to surrender it to poverty, but when you look at the tapestry of terrorist attacks across the world, for example, the 9/11 attacks were perpetrated by 19 people from the Middle East. Up to 15 of them came from the richest Middle East. We attribute the militarization of Boko Haram's campaign to their contact with people in the Sahelian region, Chad, Mauritania, those areas. Why are those people so hawkish and feisty? They are belligerent. Could you explain that? And I said, well, scientifically, there's a nexus between heat and your propensity to exude violence. And therefore, the fact that the area is so arid, it is desert-like, they have no vegetation cover from the heat, then it makes them a bit more, you know, belligerent than other people. But the Libyan conflict also made the area awash with weapons. So it became quite easy for people to lay their hands on weapons. And when Gaddafi was in his final throes, he didn't have enough soldiers to continue fighting the revolutionaries. So what he did was he went to the Sahelian region, bought up, you know, some mercenaries from Chad, Niger, Cameroon, and those areas to go fight for him. So when those people came back after the toppling of Gaddafi, they came back with some military expertise. And learning to shoot is like brainwashed and indoctrinated into embracing such.
About what's more frustrating for young men within our province is that, you know, you see, I mean, look at Goodluck Jonathan dishing out gold-plated iPhones. His daughter then gets 80 cars as a gift during the wedding. And then, you know, probably a mile down the road, you know, somebody's got medication. He's supposed to take 1-3 times a day after meal, but he can only afford one meal. Therefore, he cannot, you know, therefore, he can't even get healed, even though he's got the medicine. You know, that, you know, in your face, I have it and you haven't got it. Yes, still we're living on our land, you know, supposed to be for you and I. That, for us, I feel that, you know, instigates more violence rather than just the religious aspect of it.
And Nana, there is a lot of, you know, economic imbalance in Africa. I drive across the Kanda Highway to work every day. To your right, that is Airport Residential. People are living so affluently and opulently. Then to your left, there is a slum. So people see people riding 4 wheels every day. Then someone comes and tells you he's enjoying the lion's share of the national cake. If I give you a Kalashnikov, we can even the economic playing field. I think every young man will buy into such an erroneous idea. So therefore, I don't think we should blame capitalism for people's poverty. If you are rich and successful like Nana, thank God, it is your hard work and industry that has earned you that. But as much as possible, as we get well-being, better well-being economically, let's rope in the rest of the society, so that at the end of the day, that gaping gap between the rich and the poor will be, you know, narrowed, so that people do not feel disgruntled, disenfranchised, and disenchanted to use violence in trying to even the playing field.
I'll tell you one thing, that my disappointment within the communique was I didn't see a revolution in education. You know, I was thinking that if they could really champion good quality education, not just enrollment, but good quality education, you know, you are able to bring out people who are more discerning, and therefore they're educated, they can make money for themselves, and then they can discern as, look, I'm not blowing myself up for anything because I've read through the lines. But I'm not seeing that. I don't know if within your security, if you've heard that from anywhere.
Nana, in fact, what you saw on Friday was a sequel to a security meeting that was replete with military bravado, and that took place about a fortnight ago. So they discussed all the nitty-gritty. That was why the meeting was kept clandestine. But this was an overt show of political goodwill towards Nigeria, Mali, and Guinea-Bissau. So a lot of work is going on. This, as I said, the communique is small on detail, but the devil is in the detail. I think there will be a multi-pronged approach in tackling this issue. But in the interim, how do we stop the irrational, arbitrary, and indiscriminate killings of Boko Haram? That is why there is a lot of talk of, intelligence gathering, counterterrorism efforts, and all that. When we go beyond that, then there will be a more comprehensive approach in tackling terrorism in the long term.
I mean, from 2009 till now,
the Middle East has not...
I thought it was only the Christians that had the issue.
No, we also have that issue. I
see.
Because the Middle East has not shown any leadership. That is why things have gone haywire. It was Turkey that showed quite some leadership during the 20th century when the Ottoman Empire was still standing. But it crumbled after the First World War. So there was no leadership. People have coalesced into various groups. Christianity, Islam has also got something good to offer, so that we can live in harmony with people of other faith. But if you have a dogmatic stance and you adopt an either-or approach, it's either Christianity or all others are wrong, or it's either Islam and all others are wrong, then there can't be peace in the world. So that's why people are now talking about a clash of civilizations, because Islam is on at an extreme spectrum, and then Christianity and the current world order is on the other extreme end. So it becomes difficult for us to palanquin and use the mic to educate people. I think journalists across the world have not done so well for Islam. Wherever they are attacked, Muslim Islamists, Islamic fundamentalists, forgetting so well that terrorism is not the preserve of Islam. Joseph Kony of Uganda, who came up with LRA, Lost Resistance Army, he says by amputating people, he's doing the bidding of Christ. And Christians have come out and condemned it. The separatist movement, ETA in Spain, that carried out terrorism is synonymous with Islam. Then you don't get Muslims being forthcoming enough in helping with intelligence, volunteering information, so that holistically we can...
profess their religion, that in the name of my religion, I am doing this. Could it be the reason why we report it that way? And should the media also disregard it and say, look, I don't care who you are, it's a crime? I mean, which is...
Nana, it is in the interest of world superpowers, and I'm not anti-American. Neither am I and the Kalashnikov, and goes to the battlefield, doesn't know the political ramifications of what he is doing. So therefore, I think we should be able to, peel off these layers of obscurity so that we can present the real enemy. A real enemy who has to be tackled by the world altogether, rather than tagging him a Muslim.
Let's come back to Nigeria, and you probably know more than I do, because is there like internal support for Boko Haram? Because I know, Goodluck has got his issue between the North and South divided. Thought, look, it's not your turn. He thinks it's my turn. He stays on there. And therefore, maybe there are people within who could have helped and are not helping. Because it just blows my mind. I mean, to come to a school, take over 100 girls, I mean, you need about 3-4 buses. Yeah. and you must drive them into the bush or drive them. It's not like, a mosquito and it was hidden in the back. So, I mean, what's happening in Nigeria?
It becomes very difficult to fathom out how they were able to pull that off. These were not like babies that were, huddled together and taken away. Delinquent 18, 16-year-olds who could have said no. And more than 200 of them were rounded up and shuttled out of the country. It becomes very difficult to really comprehend what went down. There is no doubt, Nana, that we have a treasure trove of evidence that Boko Haram is enjoying a certain support system from within the state. So there's some semblance of state complacency, state complicity in what is happening. And the fact that the politics in Nigeria has been divided into two diametrically opposite sides. The PDP, which is the ruling party, Olusegun Obasanjo came from the south, and per their arrangement, anytime they filled in a southern candidate, then in the next election they have to fill in a northern candidate. So when Umar Yar'Adua was the candidate of PDP and he became president, in 2009, because of ill health, he died prematurely before ending his tenure. So naturally, Goodluck Jonathan was the heir apparent, constitutionally speaking. But the Northerners felt a bit disenfranchised, that if you were supplanting a Northern president with a Southern one, then you were robbing them of that opportunity. So we know there are certain Muslim governors in the North, For example, when you take Borno State, which is the epicenter of Boko Haram activities, the governor there is Kashim Shettima. He's a Muslim, therefore he has sympathies towards Boko Haram and all that. So we know that there is a certain support system, and the identities of these people will be blown as time goes on, because a ragtag army of miscreants. Nana, I don't know whether you've ever been declared wanted by Ghana police. As soon as you come home and people say the police came looking for you, you become feverish. You have butterflies in your panty, because look at Combien, the one who killed people and went across the border. See how swiftly he was arrested. How can a ragtag army of a few hundred people hold a country like Nigeria to ransom if they are not getting a certain support system from within? Therefore, a lot of thinking has to go into this, so that we find out who are those funding these terrorist organizations, and be able to truncate that funnel of and that channel of support they are enjoying.
Let me take a break here, and we are coming straight back. Ecowas security concerns, and we all want security. Indeed, security is very expensive. Nobody is denying that fact. However, you are responsible for your security, however expensive it is. So, I mean, should Ecowas now be thinking of an Ecowas security fund, so that this fund will be there just in case we need 600 million of it for every 9 months? There will be some billions in there to at least sustain us for 6 months or 3 years or something.
Nana, sometimes I try to be cynical to liven the conversation. If we have a country which is a leading member state of ECOWAS, and there are people who say because of the dire economic straits, we can dip our hand into a heritage fund, that tells you that you can't shelve a lot of money thinking that you are going to keep security on a sub-regional level. People will coerce you to use it for domestic problems. So, Nana, it becomes very difficult. But if you don't spend on security, what will you spend on, Nana? I think what is happening is a blatant dereliction of our sovereignty as a people, and the fact that our hubris as Africans and thinking that this continent is an independent one. So I think we should be throwing away some bucks for urgent situations of emergency like this one, so that we can, marshal our needed resources at any point in time to be able to tackle these issues. But, Nana, issues of terrorism simmer under the surface for long before they spiral out of control. That is why I'm saying the counterterrorism effort should not start on the battlefield. Start it in the shanties and slums, where people have no equal opportunities in their societies. And you're rid of that, opportunistic, environment it wants to cash in on.
Going back to Nigeria, we are told that, they had, I think, 2 days advance notice that, look, there was going to be a hit, to the point that even the teachers who suspected did not bring their children to school that day because they thought they were coming. And lo and behold, they came. I mean, what more does the citizen say, or where do you go from there?
Nana, in incidents like this, there are so many conspiracy theories. We have a problem. So that we'll put behind us all those lapses in the past and be able to, have a more tight-knit society to forestall such events in future.
I'm sorry to be going on, but like you said, Nigeria's, there's 170 million population with 500,000 standing army. Are we saying that not a single soul in this country has a whisper that, look, the people may have gone to the Kukumlemle in Nigeria or the Kaneshi in Nigeria, therefore let us look in that area and have a peep?
Offset, Nana, you were given a personal experience of what happened during the 7/7 bombings in London. In the Madrid bombings too, in Madrid, in Spain, 2004, we saw a similar thing. Boston attacks as well in the marathon. There was a complete shutdown. But do we have the resources to do that? Are we disciplined enough to be able to? People open up a phone line for the fire service, and people make, hoax calls. There's no discipline in the system. The average African is not disciplined. In the UK, you saw it. A call from authority means you would stop. You understand? By here, someone will say, "Men antia kofi ana me paki heya." You understand? So it becomes quite difficult. But considering the sheer number of Nigeria's military, it becomes an insult to think that such a son to somebody and a nephew to another person. So that galvanized the local population against the Nigerian security forces. So an impression was created as though the fight wasn't against extremists, it was against the people of that enclave. So if Boko Haram could match those girls, 200 of them, through villages to the border towns, couldn't they have gotten snippets of information from the villagers there? People are not ready to volunteer information because they feel like you are not fighting for them. You are Aban, you are government, you are different from them. If you go, the next time Boko Haram comes lurking in the background, who will protect them? So therefore, it becomes very difficult. That's why I think the Nigerian federal government has to do a lot of confidence building amongst its populace. So they are made to come to terms with the fact that this fight is not for government. The security of the ordinary Nigerian is at stake. If we don't stop these people in their strides, tomorrow they will not be hitting at Maiduguri, they'll be hitting at Abuja, which they've already done a couple of times. So therefore, people should be, psyched to consider this fight a holistic, collective responsibility.
But should Nigeria negotiate? Because, he's holding over 100, wives of Boko Haram, activists. Should he start, Nana, give me my girls and I give you your wives?
Nana, it's also poignant to indicate here that for those of us who have understudied the evolution of these militant groups, we know that even Amnesty International has accused the Nigerian security forces of heavy-handedness. There have been summary executions. There are people who have not been charged, but they are languishing in the dungeons of police custody in Nigeria. Even the leader of Boko Haram, Mohammed Yusuf, he was captured and then he was killed in police custody. So Boko Haram elements are saying not until there is a truth, justice and reconciliation campaign or venture, they will never forgive the Nigerian security forces. That is why things have spiraled out of control. So they think that by arbitrarily taking innocent people, like the abduction of these girls, they want to pay the Nigerian security forces in their own coin. They want to take their own pound of flesh from them. Therefore, I think we have to critically look at the Nigerian security's, approach in tackling this thing, because they keep making more enemies for themselves. You don't defeat your enemy only when you have killed him. You defeat your enemy when you have broken his will to continue fighting. To win against Boko Haram, it doesn't mean you should kill all Boko Haram operatives. Leave an aperture or window of opportunity for negotiation. But I think at this juncture, Abubakar Shekau, the current leader, I think the guy is a psycho. Make some time and then watch him on video. I think something is happening upstairs. The guy behaves in an unusual way. And therefore, negotiations will not work if this guy continues to be the leader of the group. And the demands he has made are preposterous. If he was even ready to trade those girls for the 100 Boko Haram inmates he was talking about, that would be a fair deal. But he says he has now divided the abductees into two. For some of them who want to remain Christians, he is ready to trade them for 100 Boko Haram commanders. But for the remaining 130 that were arraigned before cameras, they have converted under coercion to Islam. He says they are now his sisters, and therefore he's not ready to give them back to their parents. So Goodluck Jonathan has done a perusal of this proposal, this overture, coming from the leader of Boko Haram, and he has understood that this will be a half-hearted bargain, and therefore we won't negotiate with them. That's why I think, Nana, the best bet we can get is there are reports that fatigue has started setting in with the captors who are handling these girls. Last week, 4 of them were released on the basis of ill health. So therefore, it becomes difficult. These are more than 200 girls. They have to be fed. They have to be given places to sleep. They are young ladies. They are not men. They have to menstruate. We are told some of them are indisposed. So at a certain point in time, I'm sure they will start releasing them in tranches.